This past week, I brought my Warlock through the Legendary campaign, and I got myself a hold of the Swarmer's exotic legs, which means we can now make a never-ending threadling army build, which is what this video is going to be today. But before we get started, I'd like to say thank you everybody for the support, liking, commenting, subscribing. It helps me out a ton. So, a quick word from our sponsors, and we'll get right into the exotic we're going to be using today is Swarmers, which comes with the exotic perk Swarmer. Destroying a tangle spawns a threadling. Your threadlings unravel targets that they damage. Threadlings are creatures of strand matter that track and attack nearby targets, and the Warlock class plays heavily into these little creatures. From the two aspects for our Warlock to many fragments on this subclass, as well as our exotic, we will have a never-ending army of threadlings to do our bidding and tear through PvE and even PvP. You can get more of these little creatures with the weapon perk Hatchlings. Precision final blows or rapidly defeating targets with a non-precision weapon spawns a threadling at the target's location. Precision weapons are anything that can land crits. Non-precision weapons are things like rocket launchers and my Corax's Distress. With these non-precision weapons, you need a multi-kill of at least 3 to spawn one of these hatchlings. A good recommendation for this build is the Root of Nightmares auto rifle Rufus's Fury, as it can roll demolitionist and hatchling. It can be crafted with enhanced perks, and it has an adept version coming in the next few weeks, which can be enhanced with the way that adept weapons are going to work moving forward, at least for the master raids. Now for our artifact, we're going to be running strand and grenade authorization unlocks, as these are just going to make our strand and grenade mods very cheap, allowing us to stack them and just put a bunch of other stuff in this build without having to worry about sacrificing the grenade mods that we're going to be using. Untangler. Destroying a tangle with a strand weapon will suspend targets that get damaged by it. We will destroy tangles to make more threadlings with our exotic, and now we're going to suspend targets, making it easier for our threadlings to go after them and make it easier for us to deal with them as well. Allied Unraveling. Rapid final blows with a strand weapon grant unraveling rounds with a longer duration near allies. So this build is going to be using those strand weapons, so we will be able to get these unraveling rounds, and unraveling rounds are very nice as they will add some extra damage to those targets when the little sever thingies come out of them, and we will be able to deal with barrier champions without having to use any of the anti-barrier weapons we have or have to worry about the mods off the artifact too much. We're also going to be using counterweave. When you or a member of your fire team stuns or defeats a champion, you gain energy for your least charged strand ability. This is very handy, especially in endgame content or things like solo legendary lost sectors, where there are a ton of champions giving you a little bit of extra added energy back to one of your abilities. And the way that it worked for me is that 9 times out of 10 it was my grenade ability that I usually got the energy back to. And finally, we're going to use Threaded Blast. Tangles you destroy with a strand weapon have increased damage and explosion size. This is going to help support the Untangler mod, allowing it to have a greater area of effect, which is going to be extremely helpful for us in this build. Moving on to our class setup, we're going to use Weaver's Call. Cast your Rift to weave 3 threadlings and deploy any threadlings you have perched. Just by simply placing a rift, we will spawn threadlings and get them to chase down enemies and to make a tangle if they get a kill, to make even more with our exotic leg piece. Now if these don't get a kill, they will come back and perch on you, meaning they will orbit you and wait for you to deal damage to a target to then drop back down and deal more damage. And of course, casting a rift is also going to do this same effect. We have Mind Spun Invocation. Your grapple, shackle grenade, and threadling grenade have enhanced functionality. Hold to consume your threadling grenade and immediately generate 5 perched threadlings. This is how you should start any fight, as by consuming your threadling grenade you will max your threadling out at the 5 stacks that you can have. Then by placing your rift and spawning those other 3 threadlings from Weaver's Call, you will have a max of 8 threadlings to hop off of you and then go deal with whatever you need them to go deal with. The kills they get will turn enemies into tangles. Destroying them with a strand weapon is then going to make more threadlings, and you can just repeat the process over and over again. For fragments, we're going to start with Thread of Finality. Finisher final blows create threadlings with a plus 10 to recovery. This is very helpful in that high-end content where we finish a lot of enemies to save ourselves some time or ammo, or just to even get a free threadling to potentially make a tangle to destroy and get all the effects that we have previously mentioned. And the plus 10 to recovery is very helpful for just placing down more rifts. Thread of Rebirth. Strand weapon final blows have a chance to create a threadling. I mentioned hatchling earlier and how it can be used to make a threadling, but that is only on a precision kill. This, however, is any strand weapon final blow will spawn one. So if you miss the crit or don't have hatchling, this will still work. I've even had 2 threadlings spawn from both this and hatchlings going off on the same target. Thread of Evolution. Threadlings travel farther and deal additional damage with a +10 to intellect. This fragment is needed to boost our threadlings, as at base they do perform good, but this is going to elevate them to that next level where we can use them in that higher end content, plus the additional range means we can hide and cover and have these little guys be more effective. And finally, Thread of Generation. Dealing damage generates grenade energy with a -10 to discipline. The -10 to discipline off this fragment literally means nothing, as dealing any damage will give us our grenade back. This includes any damage our threadling army will deal, and this is very helpful, so we can consume more threadling grenades to get that max stacks of threadlings to add to our army to just, again, tear through most PvE and some PvP content. And of course, this is only further supported by the armor mods that we are using for this build. For our helmet, we're running Strand Siphon. Strand weapons can make us orbs of power to feed our super and the other mods we have in this build, as we are using our strand weapons for this. Ashes to assets. If you just throw your threadling grenade, they will get any grenade based mod or perk to work. This include Ashes to assets for increased super, and even Adrenaline Junkie for increased damage for your weapons that have this perk. Now, if you only want to consume them, run Dynamo. You're going to get more out of that than you will Ashes to assets. For our arms, we're going to run Firepower. Grenade Final Blows will make an orb of power. Again, threadling grenades count for this, so if you need an orb, don't be afraid to just toss one out, make an orb, and feed into our other mods. Impact Induction. Getting damage with our melee will give us grenade energy. The Warlock melee is very good. It has 3 charges, meaning we can get some decent grenade energy back when we throw them out and unravel the targets, which is a nice added benefit. Grenade Kickstart. When we have 3 or more stacks of armor charge, they will be consumed and give us more grenade energy when we throw our grenade, which is a nice little bonus for our next grenade. And consuming them for the threadlings for Mindspun Invocation counts for Grenade Kickstart to work, so you don't actually have to throw them, you can still consume them and get the bonus from Grenade Kickstart. On our chest, I ran Charged Up. This will let us hold an additional stack of armor charge, meaning we will have a max of 4 stacks to consume with Grenade Kickstart, giving us roughly half of it back. I also ran Resist mods, which you can run whatever you like for this build that you need or want to run. For legs, I ran Stacks on Stacks. This will give us an extra stack of armor charge for each orb we pick up, giving us 2 instead of 1, meaning we will hit the max stack of 4 quicker to give us the max amount back from Grenade Kickstart for this particular build. I also ran Intervention and Installation to get grenade and class ability energy back when we pick up an orb, but run whichever you like to use for your playstyle, whether that be the healing ones, the regeneration ones, or the one that gives you everything. Just use whichever ones you like. The armor charge system is very, very good for just picking up orbs for anything you do, so that's also very helpful. And for our class item, we're going to be using Reaper. Using our class ability will make our next weapon kill drop an orb of power, and considering we're going to be dropping rifts everywhere to make more threadlings or to send them out, we can get a weapon kill immediately after, get an orb of power, and feed back into like Grenade Kickstart and other stuff like that. And lastly, we are running Bomber. Using class ability near targets grant grenade energy. This is for the same reason as Reaper. We're going to be dropping rifts very often, so now we can get grenade energy back at the same time as making our threadlings and making an orb of power when we get that next kill. This build has been a ton of fun to make and a ton of fun to play with. It is just that next level that I wasn't expecting to get out of Strand, because Warlocks obviously have the most abilities that include like little creatures, whether that be the stasis turret, the arc soul, and everything in between. This is just another one of those little things, and it adds a lot of extra utility to the Broodweaver class as well. But with that, that is the end of our video. So hopefully you liked it. Like, comment, subscribe like I mentioned earlier. It helps keep me going. Check out those links down in the description, and I will see you guys in the next video.